My research revealed that Chief Anderson was reportedly the first African American to receive a commercial pilot's license.
That's correct.
You mentioned something interesting to me, and that is that he had a third-grade education.
That's correct.
How did he do that?
Well, actually, what happened was he didn't get third grade, but I think he knew a white person who donated him money and helped him to get started. He bought his airplane, made it, and he actually taught himself how to fly. But he did have help because of someone, a white person, gave him support. He taught him how to fly, and that's where he got his start.
Now, you mentioned to me that he was in charge of, he was a primary trainer,
right,
instructor or director, I guess, of the.
Right. Well, when they started the CPT program, he was part of that. G.L. Washington and President Patterson brought him down to teach us how to fly, get a private license and so forth, because he was already rated. And this is when I first met Chief Anderson. He had been flying on his own. It was help with doctors and so forth, flying over the country. From that, it started out that he was able to get with G.L. Washington and with the Air Force, the Army Air Corps Training Command at the time, which is in Montgomery, Alabama, gave support, and he actually got our commanding officer, which was white, to build the whole training command in that area.
Now, you mentioned there was one other person who was also like a co-director with Chief Anderson?
They don't mention very much. His name is Lewis Jackson. Okay. Lewis Jackson went to the same program, but he had a degree, and he also ended up being president of Wilberforce. But during his time, because of his education, he was put in charge of the whole aeronautical program because Chief Anderson didn't have a degree, and that was the reason for that. Okay.
At this point, for the benefit of our viewers, let's take a look at a timeline so that we can really get an historical perspective. April 3rd, 1939, Public Law 18 passed. And this law called for the creation of training programs to be located at black colleges, which would prepare black Americans for service in a variety of areas with the Air Corps Support Services. January 1941, Tuskegee Institute in Alabama chosen as the training grounds for the new segregated 99th Pursuit Squadron. The civilian pilot training program was under the direction of Charles Alfred Anderson, the nation's first African American to earn a pilot's license. May 1942, the 99th Pursuit Squadron activated and became the 99th Fighter Squadron. And of course, in March of 1942, 5 men received the Silver Wings of Army Air Force pilots: George S. Roberts, Benjamin O. Davis Jr., Charles H. Bebo Jr., Mac Ross, and Lemuel R. Custis. 1943, the 99th Fighter Squadron entered World War II with Lieutenant Benjamin O. Davis Jr. in command, and they ultimately flew missions in North Africa and Italy. 1942 to 1946, 994 African American pilots graduated at Tuskegee Army Airfield, receiving commissions and wings. In 1948, President Harry S. Truman desegregated the United States military. 1953, Benjamin O. Davis Jr. became the first African American Air Force officer to achieve general's rank. We would be remiss if we didn't mention that during the time that you were there were many obstacles.
Right.
What are some of your memories of those obstacles, and what message can you give to our youth, actually?
One of the things that really bring to mind is the method in which I got started. You have to be in good physical condition, and I went to Montgomery, Alabama, to a white flight surgeon. And the most interesting part about this, I flunked it on the first time I was there, and he told me to go back and get a good night's rest, and I did, and to come back next morning, and I did that also.
Okay.
When I returned, he passed me, and it shocked me because I couldn't understand why I failed the first time. The reason I failed it, he told me that everyone, you and I, actually are taller in the morning than we are in the afternoon.
Really?
And he gave me a second chance. And to this day, that's one thing I really appreciate.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt came to Tuskegee, and she was very supportive of the training program. In fact, reportedly, she's the person who convinced President Roosevelt to allow the black troops, the Tuskegee Airmen, to go to war in World War II.
That's correct.
That is correct. Let's read a letter. This is a letter from First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. We have several. I'll just read one of them. To a Mr. Cecil Peterson, who was selected at random to correspond with her. The First Lady says, "Dear Mr. Peterson, Miss Ilma has given me your name because I'm a member of the board of the Young Men's Vocational Foundation, and she suggested that you might like to have an occasional letter and packages sent you. I am so much interested that you are at the flying school in Tuskegee because I've seen it. I also understand that you were at Quaddy, and because I have seen that too, I can tell a little bit about what your background of training has been. I am sending you some hard candy and a book, which I thought might interest you. And if you will write me what kind of things you are interested in, what you would like to have sent you, and keep in touch with me a little bit with what you're doing, I hope I can be a more intelligent correspondent. I hope you get on well in the Army, and that you will write me. With all good wishes, I am very sincerely yours, Eleanor Roosevelt." That's a great endorsement.
It sure is.
It's a great endorsement. Now, the president of Tuskegee was a gentleman by the name of F.D. Patterson.
That's correct.
At this time, I'd like to share a telegram. Now, the letter that the First Lady wrote to Mr. Peterson is dated May 28, 1942. Here's a letter on August 6, 1943, realizing that the Airmen went to war in the spring of that same year.
Okay.
He says, "Tuskegee Institute has repaid Rosenwald Fund in full loan for aviation program. Feel your presence and endorsement of request during Rosenwald meeting at Tuskegee was a major factor in favorable action. Am happy men in aviation now at front are justifying in full measure the great confidence you and others expressed in them. With deepest gratitude, F.D. Patterson." I'm sure he's referring to the Tuskegee Airmen and their success during World War II. You also mentioned, is it a Noel Parrish?
Yes.
What was his role during this time?
His role actually was the commander of the entire training of the black units, from primary, basic, and advanced. All the training was under his command. Davis didn't take part until after they left the training command and went to combat. Then he was in charge of the group.
Noel Parrish was white. Is that correct?
Right.
White. Okay. I want to clarify that. Can you give us more information on him and his role? It's my understanding that he played a major role.
He did. One of the main roles he played was because, in fact, each time they said that they couldn't fly or couldn't do this, he went before the Pentagon up there and he told them that they could. They were just as good as anyone else, that they could fly. And he had put forth a lot of effort. All of the command pilots in basic and advanced and over primary was under his command, and they were white. And they were the one that gave us all our check rides to determine whether or not we'd either stay in the program or be eliminated.
Okay.